Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you all ask the questions and we answer. I'm joined by my gorgeous, fabulous, brilliant co-host, Kristen Williams, who is sporting a new hairdo. So make sure you come on YouTube to look at it. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much. It's every time we get our hair done and we're on these things, we're like, go check out the YouTube because it's not going to look like this ever again.
Right.
I promise
it's blown
you that.
out by somebody else. I know.
I know. And it's amazing. They can do that crap in like 10 minutes.
I
and
know.
This would take me an hour.
I know. We know how to take care of our bodies. Blow drying our hair, not as well. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get started here. We got a question from one of our lit teachers, Jen Bailey, and she said, I have a question that can be addressed for the Wednesday Q&A podcast. My client was a waitress for years. Her left side was always tight and stuck from it in the neck and shoulder. She used to get headaches, but is no longer waitressing. I could guess and come up with some things for her to do, but rather go straight to you since neck issues scare me. Any advice on this is greatly appreciated. So, I will just start off by saying this is so common in waitresses. Speaking of hairstylists, I saw this a lot with artists that I work with in Kentucky. This repetitive upper extremity jobs. We see it on job lines. I used to work with a lot of people who worked for Ford and Honda, and they get this overuse injury, in the neck and shoulder. And so it is not uncommon to have headaches that go along with that because so much of the musculature is shared between these two areas. In fact, it's very rare when someone comes to see a physical therapist that we would only look at their shoulder. We're almost always going to look at their neck. If they come to me for headaches, I'm going to look at their neck, their shoulder, their upper back. So this entire kind of really upper third of the body, you have to look globally. You should look down at the pelvis. And Jen knows this. You got to think about someone who's a waitress and they're carrying that big, heavy tray, usually on one side. I would guess it would be your dominant side. Maybe you're non-dominant, so you can use your dominant hand to, toss out the plate. So I would wonder, which side is it on? Dominant versus non-dominant. Now that she's not waitressing, does she get the headaches anymore? It sounds like she's still suffering from the head and neck pain. But, look, when they've got that funny weight, she probably had her lower body, her pelvis cocked in a funny way. But all of that connective tissue is connected. So taking a look at, where is her head in space? Where are her ribs in space? You're asking for some things to do. Anything that's going to lengthen the back side of the skull, where we have a group of muscles called your suboccipitals that, give those headaches that kind of wrap around your head like a headband or up over your head like a hood. A lot of times they'll come into your eyes, very similar to a sinus headache or even a migraine. So that's a great place to start. Taking a look at the rib cage, is it settled nicely over the pelvis, or are they, she jutting in front? The slope of the shoulders. I know, Laura, you can go into that extensively. Taking a look at the mobility of the upper back. Is she, rounded? Is she stuck in a more flexed position like so many of us are? By giving people tools to do on their own to improve mobility, improve strength and stability, we see a lot of these headaches, neck and shoulder issues going away. Can you restore the range of motion just through some simple, head turning exercises, head side bending exercises? The body is a beautiful healer. We just need to give it the tools to do so. Laura, what else do you have to add about that?
Well, I'd first say, Jen, I understand nervousness, but don't be nervous because, again, she's probably nervous too if she's had this for a while. So it's just another part of the body, but knowing that this part of the spine is highly mobile for a reason, and then it just needs to be brought into more balance. I have weighted tables, so I know that carrying of, really shortening, it could even be down into her thoracic outlet, brachial plexus area. So a lot of this can be at least ameliorated initially just by soft tissue, just teaching her how to roll, just literally just roll that tissue to free it up because it kind of gets locked down. And that locking down is what slows down the blood flow, slows down the nerve, the wiring that could signal to the brain like there's some kind of threat, and that could be the form of a headache. It could literally be like not as much blood flow is going there. Whatever it is, just, yes, go back to the postural stuff. Work on all the things Kristen said. Neck mobility, gentle neck mobility, but get the neck in alignment as you move it. Work on thoracic mobility. Check out the chest wall opening. The hanging shoulder, anything like that. But just teach her how to free it up. It's just natural. All these people will be like, oh, you have to do it this way. No, roll the tissue. Just roll it. There's so many different angles that the fascia runs. You're going to hit something. You just want it to be free. Like you can just kind of scrub on it and it's not locked down to the layers beneath it, because that fascia also covers the, nerves and blood vessels. And so we just want it to be, we want it to have that like kind of spongeability, mobility of the actual tissue of the fascia itself. So make sure that, simple things like that she's drinking enough water. I know that sounds weird, but hydration is super important for good fascial pliability. And I know she's no longer waiting tables, but even in the habit, like you can go a long time without getting enough hydration. So just make sure she's hydrating enough as well to just give support to the fascia and the mobility work she'll be doing there.
I love those suggestions. All that's, just important to be able to heal yourself.
Yeah. Just don't be afraid to touch yourself and roll around, all that stuff.
That's right.
Speaking of, someone asked, this was an Instagram question, curious of your thoughts on foam rolling or such devices. Effective, ? Worth the money. I'll launch into this. So, what we say in physical therapy, but this is like, you could just supplement this anywhere. I mean, this is like parenting, all of it is what you perceive to be might be, right? So if you perceive something is helping you, there is a lot of power in that. And so is there lots of hard evidence, all this peer-reviewed studies on the effects of foam rolling? There isn't a lot of research that supports any long-term change, more of the short-term value of that, whether it's that you're kind of down regulating some of the messages, or you're like freeing up a little bit of the tissue or through some compression. People will argue that there's absolutely no value in them, and then some people will swear by them. So you just take the middle road and say, hey, does it work for you? So for me, I think foam rolling can be really effective, but it has to be the right type of foam roller. It's not punitive. If we're doing something to our body that feels like it's punishing, trying to dig out, excavate, like, I'm going to get rid of this tension that, you hear about these people like going and getting massages where the person's like digging in, and otherwise they don't feel like they've got their value. And I want to say we don't want to be punitives with it, but it is effective if you feel it works, meaning not just in like the 30 minutes afterwards, but you feel like there's some carryover and you're doing something else, right? It's never going to be something on its own. We can't just buy, there's no one ingredient, anything in the world you can buy that's going to solve your problems, no matter what they are, right? It's like money's not going to solve your problems. You could have all the money in the world, but if you haven't worked on your own, history, issues, movement, behavior, etc., like money isn't going to change that. It'll help make some things maybe better. So it's the same thing. These devices are good if you're doing the work otherwise. They're also good if you buy them and you use them, right? How many people buy stuff, they use it for a little bit, and I'm super guilty of this. A lot of it has been sent to me. I'm like, oh, thank you, this is really wonderful. I see the value in it, and then I don't use it. I don't need it because for the most part, I don't feel like I need it. But, if anything, whether it's a treadmill, a bike, or a foam roller, if you buy it, are you going to use it? It doesn't matter if you spent $30 or $3,000. It's going to be a waste of space and money and just experience if you don't use it. So those are my quick answers on that. KB, do you want to go into any more detail about maybe like clinical experience with it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. There's definitely, it's a tool in the bag. So it is and it's a great tool. I mean, I have certainly, sorry, sirens going by.
Yeah.
Foam rollers, great tool to replace a therapist's hand. So I have a lot of people, it's the same thing with going to physical therapy. People become, and chiropractors and massage therapists, they become dependent upon the person. And I oftentimes use foam rollers, use balls, use, butter knives, to be like, you don't need me. You can do this on your own. So they are a great replacement for the body work that you may be paying a lot more money to go have. So, but I agree with you. I mean, I've got a foam roller. I don't use it regularly, but I rarely use it, to be honest. I do think my lit yoga keeps me nice and stretched out, and I'm a runner. So I'm running just 3 days a week, not, crazy miles, but I don't feel like I need it because I get on my mat usually within that day, either before, after, both. And I do more of a dynamic loosening of the connective tissues. But every now and then I've had things get tight and I have had to get in there, or I will see that with someone else and I'd be like, you would benefit from soft tissue work. I mean, it does help, but it needs to be done. I agree with you, in conjunction with something else. There's a lot of stuff out there that costs a lot of money that is just going to be a fancy dust collector or space taker-upper in your closet. So you got to use it for it to be beneficial. I love that you mentioned, you don't need to beat the crap out of yourself. You don't need to do it to where you're bruising yourself. It's okay to push into some discomfort, but you should never be pushing it into excruciating pain where you're seeing blood vessel bursting and stuff like that. That's just that there's no benefit to that. So, but if you're looking for the hard evidence, I agree with you. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find it because it needs to be done with something else. So, but man, that I do think there's a placebo effect. And like you said, we think it's going to work. A lot of times it works a lot better.
Exactly. The caveat to that is I will go back to, I remember 10 years ago, foam rolling the IT band was all the rage. And I feel like I was the only PT out there, like in the desert, going, don't foam roll your IT band because it's basically a massive tendon. And, it would talk about punitive. That doesn't feel good to roll a tendon.
Sure.
But people would feel something in the form of pain, which they translated into it's getting better. So I would see them and I would always ask, well, has it actually gotten better? Well, I foam roll it every night. And I'm like, so this is where, like, going back to your like, if you go to the chiropractor once a week, if you're foam rolling every single, and things aren't changing and you have to come back and do it, that's a clue that you are not progressing, right? And this really is just, as clinicians, it's what we actually want to say, which is you shouldn't be dependent on anyone or anything. This is what we do in Lit, is we educate you. You're coming, we're creating an amazing, fun choreography, but and that's what you keep coming back for. But we also, in the meantime, are teaching you about your body, educating you about biomechanics so that you can apply that in daily life, so that you can stay out of a clinic setting when you've been injured, that you don't need multiple devices to, offset daily life stressors on your body, that you really can do this through the beauty of, like a comprehensive program like we have, which is neuromuscular training and physical therapy and yoga all combined. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny that there must be a kind of a theme in the universe, because our next question, I'm sitting here reading it, is from our friend Una, who is another Lit teacher. And she says, hey, Kristen, I have a question for the podcast Q&A. Could you and Laura discuss the modern type of running shoe, so here we go again, that have carbon fiber in the soles? I have heard they are a, quote, game changer, end quote, for performance. But if they are stiff, I was wondering about the impact on leg mechanics. A friend's son, who's 25 years old, runs in them about twice a week and has just severely sprained his Achilles, and it made me wonder. Thank you so much. I should add, the friend's son is training for an ultramarathon, so doing lots of miles, even if only twice a week. Much love, Una. So, first of all, like, I read that and I was like, oh, carbon fiber, And then the PS, he's training for an ultra marathon twice a week. I was just like, okay, question mark, training for an ultramarathon, only running twice a week. I can only imagine the miles he's doing. 25-year-olds, I think. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt where I think more is better. And if so, not only are you doing an ultramarathon twice a week, so a lot of miles, suddenly getting a new type of shoe, whenever we see something, whether it's a change in training, whether it's a change in shoe wear, whether it's a change in surface, and suddenly she says he sprained his Achilles, he probably has an acute Achilles tendonitis, would be my guess, then yes, there's something going on. Can we point the finger at the carbon fiber running shoe? I don't think so. Now, speaking of running shoes, they are not good for everybody across the board. So not everybody should wear a carbon fiber. Not everybody should do a barefoot type. Not everybody should do a sole that has a very, cut out last. Not everybody should do a wider sole. Not everybody should do the Hoka that are very popular. So there's these trends, especially in stuff that people can buy. This is a business. These companies are looking to make money. Carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is what a lot of the prosthesis are made of that sprinters are wearing. So you think, oh, wow, this is great. This is going to really transmit the energy, giving you more propulsion. Well, why are we relying on other things to do this for us? Now, an amputee is missing a leg. So, they're missing the Achilles tendon. That's why, the entire foot, they need that propulsion. So, the human body, while these things are great little additives, I think we need to look in this guy at how in the world can you train for an ultra marathon only running 2 days a week? I'm not saying you got to run every day, but 2 days a week, I can imagine you've got to get those miles up. The mileage for running a marathon is high per week. I take that, double it, triple it, quadruple it, depending on the length of your ultramarathon. In 2 days, I would argue he's overtraining. If he just got new shoes, he's certainly overtraining in a brand new shoe wear that has changed his mechanics. Those are the two things that jumped out at me. Laura, what jumped out at you with Una's question?
Yeah, I mean, it's always it's hard to decipher, right? Because you have to have a side-by-side comparison. Like he did this exact same training last year with a different shoe and it didn't have a problem. That's the only way we can kind of think is it the shoe or is it the training? And even then we might say, well, did he change the surface? Is he heavier than he was? Is his, whatever it is something, changed in his body? It's really hard to say, but I totally agree with Kristen. It's you have to look at all these different forces applied, load applied, duration applied, and then you can think about the impact of this carbon thing. Is it overly springy when the Achilles is actually made to do that? The Achilles is like a spring-loaded tendon. I mean, that's exactly, if you look at the mechanics of it, at the structure of it, it's fabulous and amazing. And they've shown that people who really are faster, some sprinters, their Achilles is slightly different. It's even more spring-loaded. It's longer. It's the amount, the concentration of collagen is slightly different. So even person to person, it can be a little bit different. But it is spring-loaded. However, it does, it's going to be exhausted. Your form's going to get exhausted. There's endurance. There's so many things. So it's hard to know. The shoe can contribute to it for sure, but you've got to parse out all the other things like the biomechanics and the load and the demand that you're putting, and especially if you're putting it in a very concentrated time, only a few days a week versus kind of, for anybody endurance-wise, if you don't have a lot of time, there's plenty of people who have a full-time job and are doing these crazy things. It's amazing. And I think the ones that are successful, they cross-train. They just cross-train. So yes, there is specificity exercise. Yes, you need to run long miles to be able to run long miles. However, you also have to keep your body, your joints, your tissues healthy, and you're going to do that through cross-training. So there can be people who swim. They could run in the water. It's just a different medium, just to offload some of the pressure onto the joints and tissues. So there was your answer. We don't know. There's always so many. I loved it. I learned so much from my dad, and because he never really had, even as an orthopedic surgeon, there's a lot of clear cut stuff and there's a lot of non clear cut stuff. But he was always like, there's so much unknown and there's so many variables. So we can, and I like that because it's so antithetical and anti what most Westerners want, which is an answer, a quick fix, and, write it down and I'll follow it. And it's kind of like, well, we got to look at a lot of different things and then really pay attention to how your body responds. So anybody that's training.
Sometimes it boils down to like throwing something at the wall and seeing if it sticks for you.
Exactly. So way to go, endurance runners. We are there for you. Okay, Another really quick question. Here we go. So someone asked, love you and your podcast. How do you cultivate self-love? Well, I'll go first and then I'll let you. So I'd say, at the end of the day, I just taught a workshop and this seemed to really land with a lot of people. We were talking about sustainability. I made up an acronym. The acronym, I have it on the board, is TREAD. And the D is do your best. Take care of local because there's nothing more local than you. So we think about global and we want to think about other people, but the whole idea of like thinking local, there's nothing more local than you. No one besides maybe your parents, and that's not guaranteed, unfortunately, for everybody, is going to love you like you will love yourself. But why? So why are we our own enemy? Why are we haven't been taught that, or we like it's looked at as, lack of modesty, or I don't know what it is. But my gosh, who is going to be living with you the whole life? You, the person in your head, your thoughts, your voices, your heart, everything. So learn to be your friend. And if it wasn't taught to you, go to books that are, there's lots of really great people out there, lots of great podcasts that teach you how to do this. But the number one thing is know that you deserve it. Really own that. And then the second thing is notice your thoughts, because your thoughts are the recording that whether you put it in there or someone early in your childhood put it in there or the culture around you put it in there. Less than, you don't have this, you're not enough of this, all these things that we've been assaulted with us because that's capitalism and that's like our society, etc. And, we have to discern like that is just there, but what we know about ourselves is that we need to take care of us, and we are enough and we are good and we are whole, and we might have to keep coming back and giving that reassurance. So notice the thoughts that are not going to serve you and think like, this is what a lot of people say. Would you say that to your best friend? Would you ever say that to somebody you love? Would you say that to your child or whatever? Don't say it to yourself. So stop there and notice. And then you start thinking like, what would I say to my best friend or my family or somebody beloved that I want to treat with tenderness and kindness? And that is how you cultivate it. You have to kind of stop the thoughts that are just programmed. They're programmed. They're a story. That's all they are. They aren't you. They are something that has become a habit, and you can reprogram. And I think, and I'm going to let KB take over, but I really think when we get to know ourselves through the movement of our body, because our movement is what summons our emotions and our energy and our stories and our feelings of lack and when we reformat from a molecular level, which is what we're doing, we're going deep, cell, atom, reformatting that's where you rewire your experience in your body and your thoughts and your emotions and your ability to love and love yourself.
No, I mean, I agree with that. That was so well said. And I think that, you're absolutely right. I don't think we are nurtured that way as a society. And so, and I do think that's the beauty of age. With age, there's so many negatives, especially for women with age. I was talking to my daughter just yesterday, and we were talking about, we heard this ad that there's, someone has sued Instagram for the fact that Instagram is addictive and it's causing eating disorders and all this, which is true. I mean, I think there's truth to that. There's a lot of this. People are looking at these filters that we're putting on ourselves, and these. So it's creating, especially in young people. So it's young people that if their parents or whoever is sued because they have been looking at this false idea of what they should be, and and I listen to my daughter say, she goes, it's funny, I don't really look at it like that. I don't look at people and think I want to look like them, which I looked at her like, let me just clap that up, because I said, well, wow. I go, first of all, I love that. I said, because I'll be the first person to say, I look at someone and I think, good God, look at their skin. Why don't I wish I had that skin, and I have to catch myself. And so, and really, and that's come with age. I think it has come with me recognizing that, that's not important. And, how I look is for me. I exercise because it makes me feel better about me. It makes me feel better inside. And so, and I don't think of it as a punishment, but I have done a lot of work with my internal dialogue. And I hope that her saying that might be a little bit of the hard work I've done to pay off, that my 15-year-old kid doesn't look at someone and say, I want to look like that. I wish I looked like that. I hate myself because of it. Now, I will admit she got her braces off and she feels a lot prettier. We all do. Like, got my hair done, I feel a lot prettier. Like that's kind of a normal, but I don't think that's not self-love. Like how you can like yourself in the moment, and that's okay. Like, give yourself some props when you do something, you lose weight, whatever is important to you. Give yourself props for hard work, and don't be ashamed of that desire to want to be better for yourself. But know that I don't think it's very hard, and I think we are fighting an uphill battle. Do I think Instagram is to blame? I don't know.
We've been around long enough when there were magazines and covers, and they would say the same thing, like, this is unrealistic, and the Victoria's Secret model thing, whatever, all that. So I think it's more like you can look at that and see it for what it is. Like, oh, that's a beautiful photo. That's a beautiful woman on there. And it's not it looks like this, and that takes away from me, or I feel less than. So it's just this sense of like being at home with who you are and what you've been given. And, I always come back to like our bodies are just a miracle, and just to be able to have a body that moves.
I take that any day.
Yeah. And I think, again, it comes back to, having worked with such horrific stories. That's the other end of it. You don't want to gain your self-love by witnessing misery, but gives you perspective. We can really get into, woe is me. And it's like, whoa, I went to this event last night, and this woman has 8 children. She's in poverty, and they were taken away from her, even though she was a loving, wonderful mom, because she was considered like she wasn't giving them enough. And then of course they were much worse off, in the foster system. And it was just this, I just was like, how could you ever take a child away from the mom in that situation that's very loving, but just she didn't have the opportunities. So it's just, and that just, again, I had been earlier that day, been like, oh my gosh, I got a lot going on. I'm like, these things in my life that are amazing, but also scary. And then I'm just like, I'm just slapped back into reality. Like, oh, you know what? Okay, that's not self-love, but it's perspective. And I think perspective allows you to continue to give self-love, because that perspective will allow you to look and be like, I have actually what I need here, and I just need to really fertilize this garden of me, and that's what's most important. So I hope that helps. Get back to us, and we will always affirm your love. And, try Lit out. I don't know if you're a Lit subscriber or not, but just it makes you feel It's not a comparison game. It makes you feel really at home in your body. And that's what we want to help everybody do so that you can cultivate that self-love. So if you have any other questions, you can ask them. You can write us at support@lityoga.com. You can check out our 2-week free trial on Lit Daily, lityoga.com, and just go to the online classes. You could also find us on Instagram.
Yep. You can find Laura at laura.hyman. You can find me at kbwilliams99. You can also email us any questions you might have at support@lityoga.com. We also have a Redefining Yoga podcast Instagram that you can see past episodes and, check out all the goodness there.
Yeah. All right. As always, we're pulling for you.